Welcome to Asian Insights and welcome to the new year. We're excited about our program today as we have some lovely ladies that's going to be discussing a very important topic to you. As you know, the Asian Insights is a program that informs and educates our viewers about the Asian culture and the Asian people here in the Houston area. Edmund, would you like to introduce our guest speakers
I'd be
today?
glad to, Elsie, and Happy New Year to you.
Thank you.
This new year. So here we are in 2010, and we've got some great guests lined up for the year, and today we'd like to introduce and welcome to our audience Susan Shinagawa. She is co-chair and founder of the Asian and Pacific Islander National Cancer Survivors Network, and also we have Dr. Furjin Ding, also a cancer survivor. Today's program is really one of those to me, difficult programs to go through, and I can imagine for you ladies it's the same way in the community. And it's a subject that few Asians want to talk about at all. Not to mention the mainstream community is difficult for as much for those folks to do, but for us as Asian Americans and Asian Pacific Islanders, it's extremely difficult to talk about. And Susan is in town. She's originally from, or actually from California, Bay Area. Or, is that right? Or are you actually
grew up in the Bay Area, living in San Diego.
Living in San Diego. She's moved to warmer weather, but she is a cancer survivor, and it's one of those folks where she has taken it upon herself to be an advocate. And Susan, Furjin, welcome to the program. Susan, let me ask you this about the program itself that you've gotten involved with, the National Cancer Survivors Network. Tell us a little bit about that, but tell us about your story.
Well, the Asia Pacific Islander National Cancer Survivors Network came about because there were no services for Asians or Pacific Islanders related to cancer. I am an 18-year cancer survivor, and when I was diagnosed in 1991 with breast cancer at the age of 34, there were lots of programs for people that were mainstream white, but if I went to a support group, there was nobody that had this kind of face, and there was nobody that I could relate to in terms of what I was going through. Yes, in terms of breast cancer, yes, but in terms of the culture, it was very difficult. And I knew that there were a lot of people that were in my same shoes. I knew there were a lot of people that had cancer, but nobody would talk about it. So I wanted to make sure that people started talking about the disease, because silence is a killer, and too many people in our communities are dying of cancer needlessly, and so I felt it was important to start. So myself and the late Reverend Frank Chong started the Asia Pacific Islander National Cancer Survivors Network, based in San Francisco, but it's a national organization.
Well, according to your resume and bio, I'm telling you, I'm very impressed. You are so active in so many of the different organizations. Being this active, I'm interested in knowing, were your parents also very active in organizations when you were growing up?
Absolutely. My dad, for as long as I can remember, has been a community civic volunteer. Even when he was much younger, both my parents were in camps during World War II, and my dad was college age, and he was one of the people that was the first to go in and help set up, and then one of the last to leave when they shut down the camps. He's been a long-time civic, he's now passed away, but he was a long-time civic volunteer, and I definitely got that lesson from him.
Okay, because I was so impressed with all the organizations that you do belong to. Let me ask you a little bit about the fact that when you first got cancer, I know you said that, there wasn't anyone for you to relate to at first, but how did you begin to find people that were Asians that you could relate to and talk about your situation and have them tell you about their situation?
Well, what I did in the beginning is I would just talk to anybody that I could find. As I said, I was diagnosed when I was 34 years old. The average age being diagnosed with breast cancer in the United States is 65.
65.
And obviously I was premenopausal. Usually it's a disease that's associated with older women. And so I started talking to younger women, and then I would talk to just anybody that would listen to me. But the reason why I started seeking out Asian and Pacific Islanders is when I found the lump myself, and I went to a doctor to get it tested. They sent me to get a mammogram. That was negative. I had a sonogram, and that showed that it was a solid mass. It didn't mean that it was cancer, but it just was not cystic. It wasn't fluid. So they sent me to see a breast surgeon, and he did an exam, looked at my films, took a family history, and he said, "Susan, you don't have anything to worry about. You just have lumpy breasts." And one of the reasons why he would not do a biopsy is because he told me that Asian women don't get breast cancer.
Oh my goodness.
And that really stuck in my head. And very soon after I finished my treatment and started to talk to anybody that would listen to me, as I said. I started to seek out Asian health organizations. I couldn't get Asian women, I couldn't get anybody that was Asian to talk to me about cancer. But I was born in the United States. I'm pretty westernized, and I have a big mouth. That's what my mother thinks. My dad said that. And so I would just talk. I would tell anybody that was in earshot of me that I had cancer. And I wanted people to know that. I wanted people to know that I did all the right things, and yet I still ended up with cancer.
Okay, I'm interested in something you just mentioned a little bit earlier. You said the doctor said Asians don't get cancer. So how did you end up finding out that you did have cancer?
Well, I actually worked at a cancer center. I was a grants administrator, so I didn't know anything about the health side of it, the medical side of it. But I worked at a cancer center, and a friend of mine was teaching a breast self-exam class, and she asked me to go. So I went, not for any particular reason other than she asked me to go. And when I took the breast self-exam workshop, I found out that I had a couple of risk factors. Now, risk factors in and of themselves don't mean anything, but if you accumulate certain risk factors, then you have a higher risk of breast cancer. And one of the things is I started my period before I was 12. I was 10 years old. I was over 30, didn't have any children. And so I decided, doing breast self-exam would be a good thing for me to do. So I actually did breast self-exam. I learned the proper way to do it. I did it every month on a regular basis. I even drew out a map of what I felt so that I would remember the next time I had my did my breast self-exam. And 6 months later, all of a sudden, when I did my breast self-exam, this lump was there that wasn't there before. It was very prominent. It was right underneath the surface of my skin, so I could look down and see it. And so I did what you're supposed to do. I followed it for 2 months to see if it changed through my cycle, and it didn't. So since I worked at a cancer center, I went to see one of my friends who was an oncologist, and I asked her to look at it. She didn't think it was any problem, but she's the one that sent me to get the mammogram. And that's how that got started.
It seems, Susan, that it's a twofold thing. But what else I just asked you about what the doctor said, and then your own experience of being almost in isolation after discovering this and not having a support network of people that you could identify with, kind of leads me to why you were actually such a great advocate for it. The doctor, on the first hand, didn't really have much experience other than probably maybe some statistics or maybe his own personal knowledge. Says, I've never seen an Asian woman with cancer, so this is the first one. You can't have cancer. So is that some of the reasons why you've gotten into the advocacy side of it?
Oh, absolutely. I actually have that doctor to thank me for becoming an advocate. If he hadn't have said that, I'm not exactly sure where I would have gone. I probably would have done something, but I wouldn't have been so passionate about it. And I actually think the reason why, I've not talked to him about this, but I believe the reason why he said that Asian women don't get breast cancer is the way the National Cancer Institute collects and reports cancer on Asian Pacific Islanders. They lump everybody together. But if you look at the population of Asian Pacific Islanders, 70% of Asians are first-generation immigrants. They come from the countries with the lowest breast cancer rates in the world. It's a young population. Breast cancer is generally a disease of older women. So what you're really getting, here I am, third generation in the United States, those statistics are not relevant to me. But because more of the population is immigrant, it's really reflecting these countries with low rates. And so, unfortunately, as women immigrate to the United States, their rates are climbing because there's something going on with our diet, our environment. And so I don't blame him. I thank him for saying that because he really turned me into an advocate. But he made me very passionate because, unfortunately, I was telling Virgin today that this is 18 years later, women are still telling me that doctors are telling them when they go in with a breast lump and they say, I want to get this checked out. They say, don't worry, Asian women don't get breast cancer. We have a lot of work left to do.
Well, another